Today, we're going to examine the posture of the great martial artist and actor Bruce Lee. While I don't think Lee had perfect posture, there is reason for us to think he had above-average posture. The kind of impressive and extreme gestures that Lee makes require significant training, and some of that training involves the coordination of the movements of the torso. There are certainly connections between elements of high-level martial arts training and the kind of postural training that I advocate for on this channel, both in practice and on the conceptual level. I want to focus on the configuration of Bruce Lee's torso. The common model of good posture shows the torso as being bent. My position is that the torso should be kept stable in a lengthened configuration as opposed to bent, that the sternum should be essentially vertical and not angled, that the lower back should be kept essentially flat and not curved. Some people have trouble with this idea. They think that it's rigid to maintain this configuration of the torso, that it wouldn't allow for free movement. I don't think anyone can deny the impressiveness of Bruce Lee's ability to make complex, coordinated movements. So let's pay special attention to his torso as we examine the video and images of him. One other topic we'll examine is the position of the head. I've previously argued that your head should be forward and up relative to your torso, whereas the more common position is that the head should be pulled back. I showed in a previous video that many old movie stars have their head well forward of the back line of their body. That is quite different from the modern conception of good posture, especially the popular sort of exercise man posture, where the back of the head is nearly in line with the back line of the body. What will we see in Bruce Lee? Let's find out. We'll start with a little video. We can see right off the bat that through all these kicks, Lee is maintaining a remarkably stable configuration of his torso. Even with the demands of twisting his body to kick in all different directions, he immediately stabilizes into his typical posture, where his lower back is quite flat and his sternum is essentially vertical. This produces the appropriate sloping forward at the upper end of his rib cage. He finishes with his torso lowered in space, but kept upright by getting significant extension through his legs. Despite how wide his stance is, his pelvis is totally upright, which is something most modern people struggle with, even just in standing, without some training. Here again, right in the middle of the action, we see that his torso is well configured. He almost never allows his pelvis to tip relative to his rib cage. Even here, as his body is closer to horizontal, the relationship between his rib cage and pelvis stays intact. As he hops up from the ground, he's again immediately back into a lengthened configuration with his torso. But here we see him standing, sort of posing in the scene. His posture's not terrible, but he clearly has his pelvis pushed forward and he's leaning back with his upper torso. I think part of this is that he's acting here. He's trying to appear nonchalant and unperturbed, and this leaning back at the upper end of the torso does give off that relaxed feeling. Unfortunately, it will almost always coincide with the pelvis going forward to counterbalance. His opponent, though his head might appear forward, is clearly tipping his ribcage back, and also has his pelvis too far forward. As a result, his head is forward, but very far down. We see that the moment Lee goes back into fighting mode, he organizes his torso. He moves his pelvis back, nicely hinging at his hip joints. If we look at images, it's clear that Bruce Lee's head is typically seen very far forward relative to his torso. Sometimes I would say his head is a bit low, but it makes sense that a fighter would want to keep their head low for defensive reasons. It would also make sense to some degree to pull your head back, to make your opponent reach further to hit you, but that's not what we typically see. It may be that pulling the head back is too much of a compromise of the airway, or too out of balance with the torso to use, even if there is a benefit in fighting. Most of the time we see his sternum is quite vertical, which, to be clear, is something you never see in the standard model of good posture. Most common postural advice out there will tell you to change your posture towards a more angled sternum and a more bent back. This is because they're missing the basic idea that the torso needs to be stable, with the rib cage kept upright over the upright pelvis. So in practice, they tell people to lift the front of their rib cage, which results in the top of the rib cage going back and down. It's not that we can't find times where Lee's posture is a bit off, but it's clear, especially when he's fighting and not posing, that a stable, lengthened torso is his baseline. To me, the most impressive part is how his pelvis is so often quite upright despite the impositions of the difficult gestures he's performing. Free use of our arms and legs is not impaired by maintaining a stable, lengthened torso. It's enhanced. The kind of martial arts gestures that Lee makes and his impressive physique are no doubt the result of many, many hours of training and work. Most people can't put that kind of time into such things. But if you want to be able to use your body better in your day-to-day life, so that you don't experience pain or movement issues, now or in the future, learning how to organize your torso is crucial. Most people do almost every activity with their pelvis tipped forward and down at the front, and the top of their rib cage tilted back and down to compensate. Because this makes significant fascial structures like your thoracolumbar fascia, your psoas fascia, and your IT band limp instead of taut, as they should be, most modern people end up with pains, movement issues, and other related negative health consequences. A large chunk of people that come to me for lessons cannot, at first, make an intentional movement back and up with the front of their pelvis, nor can they move their rib cage. Sometimes they say it doesn't seem possible, that they don't know what they need to do to make such a specific movement with their pelvis. They wonder if they even have muscles that can do this stuff. I understand, as I felt the same way when I started learning this stuff years ago. But with a little training, you can get the movements going, and in time, you can learn not just to make these movements that lengthen the torso, but sustain them throughout your daily activities and even through more complex gestures. Just training your posture and ability to gesture will not turn you into Bruce Lee, but it can change how you stand, sit, walk, and do pretty much anything. And if you are trying to excel in a physical field the way Bruce Lee excelled in his, you would benefit from knowing how to organize your torso the way Bruce Lee could organize his. On this channel, we explore how to connect your mind and body so that you can control how you use your body. I also offer lessons done one-on-one over Zoom, where you can get direct assistance in taking control over how you use yourself. Video of the lessons is recorded through Zoom so that you can see for yourself what you're doing. You can see when you're succeeding and where you're sometimes not doing what you think you're doing. Over time, you will see yourself change for the better right in front of your own eyes. To get more information about the system I teach or to book a lesson, please visit my website mechanicsofpoise.com or send me an email at delsartelessons@protonmail.com.